Now let's do all the work we've done in understanding rational expressions, and let's solve some equations that include rational expressions. And these are called rational equations. Some people might call them fractional equations. And so we notice that we have a variable. And this one, the variable is in the numerator across, and our goal is to solve for what value of x makes this true. Now, I want to give you a little bit of a secret or a little bit of a tip of how we can best solve these. And it has to do with the idea of the lowest common denominator. So looking at this equation here, can you determine what the lowest common denominator is? No, it's not 4, not 10. You're right, it's 12. So if I can determine the lowest common denominator, in this case being 12, I'm going to use that to my advantage. And watch. I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation, which is something that we're allowed to do, by the same number. And I'm going to multiply this side by a 12. I'm going to multiply the other side by a 12. And let's watch what happens. So let me just do a kind of an intermediate step here. So 12 times an x plus a 4, or x fourths, equals 12 times this first term, 12 times a 1/4, plus 12 times x over 6. Now, are you able to see why that was kind of a cool move? 12 times x over 4th, 12 and 4s factor out, so I'm left with a 3x. 12 times a 1/4 produces a 3, or a 12 over 4, which reduces down to a 3, plus 12 times x over 6. The 12 and the 6, they both are factors of 6, so I'm left with a 2x. So what do you notice about that equation? We have an equivalent equation from the first one. What we did is we found a fraction eliminator, the lowest common denominator, so now we can solve this equation for x. There's no fractions involved. I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. So I'm left with x equals a 3. And that's my solution, x equals 3. We can go back and we can check to see if that's the case. And let's just do that for fun. So that's 3 over 4 equals 1/4 plus 3 over 6. And let's go ahead and see if that is indeed a true statement. We got to get common denominators out of all of these. Or I know that 3/6 is also equivalent to 2/4. That's another way to do that. But let's write them all over 12s. So multiply the first one by a 3 over a 3, makes that a 9/12. Multiply that one by a 3 over a 3, which will make that 3/12. Multiply that one by a 2 over a 2, which will make that 6/12. And you can see that 9/12 equals 9/12, which is a true statement. And we'll get true statements because we found the correct value that makes the original statement true. So this is a really cool idea to kind of help us take a complicated expression or equation and kind of do something clever first to get it in something that we're maybe a little bit more manageable. Ready to do some more?